Good morning, world. Maria here, alive and kicking. Welcome to The Bigger Picture, a fabulous spiritual show that gives us all a good breather from the crazy news and everything else going on in the world. With my co host, Michael Reccia, we're going to be talking about a lot of spiritual stuff, his latest book, From Here to Infinity. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, Maria. Great to be with you again.
It's always good to have you on the show, and it's such a relief. Actually, it's a relief for me than having to discuss the world situation.
Thank you.
Yeah, a lot of my listeners, a lot of my students are turning on to your books, and they're just loving them. One of them wrote me actually yesterday and says she's already read two of them, and she has the other ones on order. Actually, she's the
Okay.
one that's got the first question for you today. So you ready for a
Sure.
question?
Yes, indeed.
She says, my first husband died 22 years ago. Since then, when I'm under a lot of stress, for some reason, a white feather always appears and I perceive a pleasant smell of him. Is he looking over me or is this just my imagination?
The love link is eternal. The love link is eternal because we are eternal, we are love, and God is love. And it makes absolute sense to me that the people that we love and who have gone on ahead of us want to be involved in our physical lives until such time as we can be reunited with them spiritually when we move on from this physical body. And they will get through to us in whatever way they can. And it's not a normal method of communication. It's whatever is relevant to us as individuals. So in the case of the feather or the strong smell that reminds her of her husband, certainly he's trying to get through. Sometimes you will find that thoughts cluster on a certain day. Unbidden, you are thinking of circumstances that surrounded you and someone that has gone on into the spirit realms. And the picture builds up. You can be working at something else. It's not a conscious thing, but you will, during that day, have several instances of a connection with that person and with memories of that person. Also, we are sometimes literally moved to tears, aren't we? And again, unbidden, because we are thinking of somebody unbidden. And that closeness of emotion is because that person, yes, absolutely, is connected with us and concerned with how we're doing. Of course, we meet the people that we love at night when we move away from this world for a time during sleep state. But unfortunately, because of the complexities of this world and the heaviness of this world, we don't often remember in the morning. But
Right.
we do connect to the people that we love. We can't do otherwise. We're a part of them, and they're a part of us. There is no disconnection. There is no distancing, except, unfortunately, from our point of view, because we are still locked into a physical body.
Right. Well, it's interesting because you don't have to have somebody that's already crossed on to be able to have those meetups in the dream space.
Yes, absolutely.
It's very interesting because the day before yesterday, I woke up and I remembered my dreams. There were three specific people in it. But one of the people that was in it was a young man who I happen to know. I've known him since he's a baby. I've never dreamt about this kid. He's like 19 now. And in the dream, he came up to me and he gave me a very loving grandma type kiss. And
Uh-huh.
that was the dream. And when I woke
Yeah.
up in the morning, I said, okay, why would I have a dream such as this about this boy? And I said, my sense was that he was trying to draw on my energy, trying to draw on my strength, and that he was in trouble.
Yes.
About 2 hours after I woke up, his mother called me and told me that this kid was in some serious trouble. And I had told her about my dream. And, right now, I had said to her, if he needs me or he needs to talk to me, have him get in touch with me. Let him know I won't judge him or anything, but I'm here for him. But it was instantaneous. It was within 2 hours of waking up from that dream that I found out that boy was in trouble.
Yes, yes. Because we're no different in a physical body, essentially, than we are in the spiritual realms. The same form of communication takes place. It's simply masked. Sometimes in the morning, I'll be reading a book, and Jane will be asleep, And when she wakes up and relates her dreams, elements of the book I've been reading have surfaced as visuals and sounds in her dreams.
Well,
So we pick up from each other in that way. So yes, we receive communication all the time from the people around us and the people around us in the spiritual realms. And as you did today, Meria, it's important that we act on our instincts. Mm-hmm. If we dream of someone that we're close to, a friend or a relative, even someone that we've only known briefly, and we can get in touch with them, it's a good idea to get in touch with them and say, just seeing if you're okay.
Right.
Because very often they aren't, and as you've said, they've sent out that distress call, and they need help from us. Mm-hmm. It's all one big connection. It can't be otherwise. We're all one.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, this was proof positive. If his mother hadn't called me, I would have called him. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, indeed.
Because I always pay attention to things like that. But what you said about you and Jane is very interesting, because I'm assuming the two of you sleep in the same bed, and you're sharing your aura while you sleep. So isn't it typical that your dreams would kind of blend into hers and vice versa?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. It's quite amusing sometimes, because she'll be living through a section of a novel that I'm reading. And has found herself as a character in a situation that I've been reading about.
Well, this is why I tell people, if you're going to have one night stand with somebody, the least of your problems is catching an STD, because they're sharing your aura and your dream space with you and transferring their stuff back and forth with you. What do you agree with that?
Yeah. And we do make, as you just said, connections with people all the time. Mm-hmm. We have to be careful, and there should be part of a daily regime to make sure that we haven't picked up a connection that is draining us. You will know, and I know, certain personalities in our lives that might be the most wonderful people on earth, but whenever we're in their presence, very quickly we become tired, we become listless, and all our energy goes. Mm-hmm. And very often it's because they've got a situation within their lives that requires that energy. On a subconscious level, they recognize that we are capable of giving of our energy, and automatically that exchange takes place. So as part of the daily regime that we as spirits, as spiritually minded people, should undertake, we should check ourselves and think, wait a minute, why am I so tired? Or why has my mood suddenly changed from one of happiness to one of depression? Is it me is always the question. That's the first question. Is it me, or is it a connection to someone else? And very often, if you mentally scan the people you know as personalities, you will find the right one. And when you find the right one and that connection, the mood that you've had or the loss of energy that you've experienced lifts instantly. And so you know, that's where it's come from. And we have to make sure that those connections, yes, we can send light to people, but we can't have people connected to us constantly who are draining our energy. And I must emphasize that most of the time they don't know they're doing this, but nevertheless it happens, because subconsciously, as a spirit, they need what we can provide.
Right, but you don't want to be drained by them either.
Absolutely.
And that's a good one to say. Is it you or is it someone else?
Yes.
I can always tell, I like, they used to call those types of people psychic vampires.
Yes, that's my term for them as well.
Or I like to call them deadly Klingons. But that's where, you have to know how to shut your energy down, how to protect yourself. How important do you think spiritual protection is?
Yes, vitally important. And I don't think we've mentioned on the show before that there are other forms of energy, leeches, if you will, that can affect your energy levels. Now, I've seen these things, as you must have, on numerous occasions, Meria, and they are thought forms that have a basic sentience, but can wrap themselves around your principal chakras, and it is in their interest to keep you at a low level of energy, i.e. sad or depressed depressed or nervous or worried, and they feed on the light at that level that you give out, that lower vibration. And if you check yourself psychically and you can see what is happening, sometimes you will see these things wrapped around the chakras and they look like slugs or squid or something like that. And when I see these things, and I can feel them sometimes, they will tighten around your throat or around your head chakra, I reach out physically and I take these things off and hold them and put in a greater light than the light that they expect from me. And so I bathe them in white light until they dissipate and disappear. Now, that sounds very spooky and very creepy, but we need to be aware of these things. Yeah. We create these energies, these thought forms, via the field of consciousness that we're all immersed in, like a soup of human consciousness. And they maintain themselves by feeding off the light energy that we give out as spirits. And so very often, when our mood again changes, it is not because we've connected to another person or they to us, but it's because we have one of these creatures, is the best word I can come up with, that is attached to us and continues to feed because we make a tasty snack whilst they keep us in a state of lower vibration.
Well, that makes sense. I have always recommended that people cleanse their chakra system. And
Indeed.
There's a lot of ways they can do that with visualizations. Here, we kind of see them more as ropes or plugs just plugged into our chakra system. And If you can get into a quiet meditation and view your chakras, and anybody can Google, the chakra system online, and look at the colors of your chakras. Are they murky? Are they dark? Are they dirty? And then visualize flushing them out and then refilling them with the brightest color of that particular chakra. And then I always recommend people visualize putting a padlock on it once they've cleaned it. And when people go out to work or they're out and about in their day, I always tell them, when you get home, it's really a good idea to take a shower right away, just to rinse off your chakras from being out in the dirty world.
Yes.
My teacher
indeed.
Sunbear used to say, moving water is healing water.
Yes, indeed. It's a dangerous world out there. It's a dangerous world around us. But there are things that we can do, and we need to understand those things that we can do.
Right.
And you wonder how many people throughout history have suddenly been moved to perhaps a violent act or an act that's damaging to others, simply because they have something that is attached to them and haven't recognized that there's something attached to them, and their mood has been changed sufficiently into the negative that they've taken negative action.
Right. Well, when you hear of, say somebody goes crazy and goes out and murders somebody, and all their neighbors say, he was such a quiet guy, he was such a good person, they never expect that. Could that be the reason why?
Yes, it can be the reason why. You also have examples of, again, we need to work in conjunction with doctors and nurses so that we treat each aspect of the human condition. You have examples of people who are diagnosed, for example, as schizophrenic, and they are apparently, in the view of the medical profession, hearing voices. Well, in many cases, it's not apparently at all. It's actual, because they are psychic enough to pick up on the spirits that are around them. And those spirits that are around them, because they are connecting to someone who is not disciplined mediumistically or psychically, are not always positive spirits. So I look forward to, I kneel down on the floor and I pray for the time when we work in conjunction with the medical profession, treating the maladies of the physical and the mental, but also, from our perspective, the maladies of the spiritual. And then we begin to heal, and then we begin to understand people, and then we begin to see what's actually happening with them, and then we give them a much better quality of life.
Absolutely. Well, that's been something that's been taught for so many years, treating the body, mind, and spirit.
Yes.
But, a lot of people in the medical profession would just poo-poo that. But here's a
Yes.
question for you because, I do cover the news. I see everybody seems to be going insane all around the planet. Here in America, the insanity level is off the charts. The hatred, the racism, the old divide and conquer, happening with the politicians. They're getting everybody all crazy, people attacking people at protests. Do you
Yes.
think that perhaps we're being bombarded with negative spirits or negative entities?
I think there is a move from the field to keep us in a negative state of mind and to keep us in thrall of the field in the way that we react to society. You will know yourself, Maria, whenever you try to work spiritually and you try to do something in the name of the light, then there is always a pull or something will happen to try and upset the apple cart. There's an example today. Today I've been sitting with David, the Band of Light, and Jane, and we have been recording Jane's questions that she asked when we sat with Joseph for Your Life After Death, because we are translating Your Life After Death into the option of an audiobook. Now, we've got a quiet room there that is well soundproofed. We have good recording equipment at David's. And yesterday there was no disturbance. Tomorrow there will be no disturbance. But the minute we started this morning, they started replacing the railings around a children's school that's nearby and drilling them and digging up the road. And you might think, well, that's just coincidence.
No,
but it
it's
happens
not.
every time. I've had instances when I've been recording this book on a particular day in the week, and from my house to David's house, there has been a solid traffic jam that has taken me over an hour to get to his house, but not on the day before, not on the day after, not after we've concluded the recording. And this is an example of the field in action. The field of human consciousness that Joseph describes as a frightened child is set to negative, wants to keep us to negative, and doesn't want to let the light in. Doesn't want to let the light in. So it will, with what we said earlier in the program, attempt to maintain its state of negativity by helping those who are easily persuaded to contribute to it via negative vibration to do so. So it will stir you up. It will stir up the racial hatred you've been talking about. It will stir up the political hatred you've been talking about, because it feeds and maintains itself via negative energy. What we have to do to counter it is to go within to our heart centers in the quiet and bring through God energy that comes not from within that finite bubble of the field, but from within our souls and from within the spiritual universe and from the heart of God. That energy is pure, that energy is love, and that energy is far more powerful in changing things than anything that can be thrown at us from the negative side of the scale.
Right. Well, I didn't mean to laugh when you started telling that story, but I think you're living some kind of copy of my life, Michael. Because I had this fabulous woman fly in from Minnesota this weekend to get her Reiki attunements with me. And, I live in a very quiet neighborhood normally. And I had decided after we did the class work on it that we would wait until dusk and go into my side yard and I would give her her attunements inside my medicine wheel. And don't you know, and this has never happened before, Michael, never. My next door neighbor, starting at 6 o'clock at night, it went through till 9 o'clock that night, starts using a leaf blower while I'm out there. He's out there for 3 hours, it's pitch black, and he's still blowing leaves. And I said to this woman, I said, this has never happened before. He has never once blown his leaves, let alone who does this in the dark. And we got a good laugh out of it. It was disturbing, but I centered myself, I focused, I protected myself, and we still got on with it. But
Yeah.
it's just the perfect story for what you just said.
We had all kinds of difficulties when we sat to bring through the Joseph chapters, because of course I was in trance, and in that state, you're very sensitive to anything happening around you that's untowards, that can bring you out of trance and break the communication. It's a very delicate communication. And we would have neighbors arguing with each other.
Right.
We would have dogs barking. We would have an invasion of children on the playing field at the back that wouldn't normally happen. All kinds of disturbance. Anything that could go wrong did go wrong. But it makes me, as of today, it makes me more determined than ever that what we're doing gets through and gets completed. And I actually asked this morning one of the guides who was with us, I said, can you stop that noise, please? We're attempting to get this book out to help souls around the world. And it stopped. It started again in the afternoon, but it stopped so that we could get things done. And then we had to slot things in the afternoon.
Right.
But it just makes me, as it must with you, Maria, more and more determined
Of course.
that the work that we are doing has to be done.
Of course. It's like, man, I don't care what's happening. We're still getting this done. But it's kind of interesting, to see how the rest of the time it could be quiet as church. And all of a sudden, as soon as you're starting to do something spiritual and bringing in the light, all of a sudden, it's like a parade's going by your house. And I'm like, what are the chances of this? This has never happened before. But I guess, and we had other things, of course, that kind of could have created a lot of delays, but we also overcame that. So, to think about the fact that we're living on a planet that has so much, I'm going to call it outside interference, that so many people are unaware of, and they truly believe that they're feeling what they're feeling when it's probably not them at all.
Yes, it's a matter of teaching them first to question, I suppose, because as you say, many, many millions of people never question. They get up in the morning, they do the same thing, they go to bed at night, and they never question. I was looking up at the sky today and thinking, how wonderful, and seeing the clouds roll to the horizon. And I thought, I wonder how many people are sharing this experience at this time, because so many of them are locked into either technology or worry or jobs or the mortgage. And those are all things that tie us into the field. And the start point to discovering your spiritual core is to question. And not to be afraid to question. A lot of people are frightened of questioning, for example, what comes next. They never ask that big question. I'm here, but one day I won't be. What comes next? Does anything come next? Does something come next? How can I find out? Rather than the head in the sand attitude of rushing through life at 300 miles an hour so that you don't have to think until the actual day when you pass on from this place. That's too late in terms of preparing yourself. Get the knowledge now. Begin to understand what you are. Question what you are. I mean, as people are listening to us now, they're sitting there and they've got arms and legs and eyes and ears and hair, and they have a certain configuration. If they look in the mirror, they can say, just what is this? What is it? What am I? And to begin to question and ask and seek and ask from within to be given the answers. That's the start point. That's how this world will change when we realize that we are much, much more than we appear to be.
I totally agree. I mean, just the few little experiences we've talked about today, whether you're getting contacted by somebody who left the planet 22 years ago, or you're getting contacted by a 19-year-old who's just in another state, who's still alive, has to show people that we are more than just our physical experience.
Sorry, say again, Maria, sorry.
It has to show people that we're more than just our physical existence.
Yes, yeah.
In your book, From Here to Infinity, you talk about our life here as a projection.
Yes.
I don't know that people can really understand that. I like to explain to people that this is like a game, and our body is just an avatar in a game.
Absolutely. That's a great analogy. It's a great analogy because people do get involved in these shoot-'em-up games or whatever the game is, and for that time when they're playing the game, they are totally immersed in the character that they're playing within the game. But at the end of the game, they retire from that character and become themselves again. And that's a great analogy that you've given, Maria, because that's exactly what we are. We are projecting ourselves into this illusion with a certain set of values that we believe to be us. The way to alter the game is to come out of the game for a short time each day and begin to explore if there is more. And we do that through, we've talked about noise today quite a lot. And the way to explore our spirituality and explore whether there's more is to turn the game off for a few moments every day. Hopefully for a quarter of an hour or half an hour, to spend some time each day in contemplation of the quiet, in contemplation of the peace, and if we're up to it, to give ourselves something to do, to give our physical mind something to do in the way of guided meditations that will take our mind away from this place so that we can reach a quiet place within ourselves, and then there we can listen. There we can look. There we can sit in anticipation of information coming to us from a higher source. And that higher source is ourselves, but it's our spiritual selves. We can't get out of the game if we're totally immersed in it and playing it all the time. We have to be aware that it's a game, and therefore we have to examine what is not the game. What is the me that is not of the game like? How do I discover that me? And we discover that me through quiet, through meditation, and through connection from within to whatever our concept of divinity is, whatever our concept of the light is. And then we begin to allow ourselves to be guided from within rather than from without, so that we are controlling our own personal game rather than letting the game that we are a part of physically control us.
Well said. Yesterday, it's interesting because yesterday I had a different guest on the show, Richard Grove, who's a brilliant young man. And we were talking about real history and the illusions on this planet. And when we talked about the media, he said something that I think also has a lot of spiritual truth. He said people are too busy listening to the noise and they miss the signal.
Yes, perfectly put. Perfectly put. If you look at lives today, there is noise all the time. There is information coming from the computer. There's information coming from the mobile phone. A lot of people, as soon as they come downstairs in the morning or whenever it is, they'll put the radio on, or they'll put the TV on. The same thing happens when they come home. The radio's on in the car. There is constant noise in their lives. And noise not just of an audio variety, but noise of a clamour of life. And I'm sure it's the same in America as it is here, in that if you look at advertising now on the TV, everything is so fast. You look at programs and the way that programs are cut together, drama is cut together now. Everything is so fast. We are filling in the spaces where we used to pause. Faster and faster, more and more noise, so that we never have a chance to examine what we really are. We've got to slow that game. We've got to take those pauses and see what we discover in the silence.
Absolutely. I often tell people to unplug every now and then. It's very healthy to just unplug. Yes. Get offline, dump your phone, get out in nature, sit by a lake, just be quiet. But I like to keep my home fairly quiet, okay? Because I spend a lot of time in my head thinking. And I know that sometimes it's a little how could we say? It's a little upsetting to some of my family and friends that I like it quiet and I like low level lighting. I like
Yeah.
the atmosphere that I create for me to exist in peace in.
Yes, it's very important. And you are living your own life. You're living your life as you want to live it. And that's something else that spiritually minded people have to be brave enough to do. Because in investigating in the silence what you are, the true spiritual values that you hold as a creative divine being come to the surface. And when they come to the surface, you begin to look at this world in a different way.
Wow.
The world becomes too loud. The world becomes too harsh. Some of the views of the people around you that you might have invested in for most of your life become alien to you. Mm-hmm. So you have to be brave enough to create your own sanctuary within yourself and within your home, within which you can be you. Not the you that has to join in with everything simply because it's peer pressure and you're expected to do it, but the you that is a spirit, the you that knows how it wants to live in joy and how it needs to distance itself from this world to some extent in order to do so.
Absolutely. Michael, I totally agree 100%. We're going to go to a short break. Stay with us. Michael and I will be right back.